The scene with Vecna and Will was probably the standout moment of the Stranger Things Season 5 trailer, and it felt like it really encapsulated the final showdown that many of us were waiting for. After having the trailer on repeat last night, it led me to think about the many different possibilities that could have led to this scene happening, and what it is that Vecna is actually doing to Will. So with that, I wanted to share the many different theories about what could be going on, why he's doing it, and which one I think has the highest chance of it actually being. Here is what Vecna was doing to Will in the Stranger Things Season 5 trailer. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Well, first off, the scene in question that I'm discussing is when the military base was totally destroyed. Soldiers were dead due to battling with Demogorgons and Demodogs, and following Joyce, Mike, and the new gang being nowhere to be seen. It was just Vecna and Will that were left there. Within this scene, Vecna said, "Will, you're going to help me one last time." And as that was said, Vecna paralyzed him, picked him up using his powers, and then proceeded to move him towards him. Honestly, it was such a cool scene. So in predicting what could be happening in this final scene and why it's happening, we first have to look at what came before it. Obviously, this is a trailer, so the scenes aren't necessarily cut in a linear chronological order. But throughout the trailer, there were two key moments that incorporated Will. One saw him lying on a sofa in a passed out state whilst Joyce was praying and Mike was looking over, and we know it's him because of the red trousers and the same shoes that we saw when he was being picked up by Vecna. And the second one was him in the woods with Dustin, Mike and Lucas as they were laying down their plan of going through the secret tunnel and into the church, but whilst he was there, Will turned around and looked up towards the sky, almost reminiscent of what we saw in the Season 4 finale when he sensed that he saw something. Will has the ability to sense the Upside Down and Vecna's presence like nobody else in the group can, and I think in this instance in the woods, that could be where Will most likely sense the presence of Vecna. With the line, "Will, you're going to help me one last time," being spoken by Vecna, I don't actually think that's from the final scene. I actually think that's going to be from Vecna finding Will and reaching out to him from the Upside Down. This is why I think Will is most likely going to end up in that paralytic, unconscious state for a while, because Vecna might well have a hold on him just like he did in the very first season of the show. It could all just get too much for Will and he'll be rendered into that unconscious state all over again, hence why Joyce was praying. Within the military base scene, it appeared as though Will was more conscious than what he was when he was with Joyce and Mike as he was up and moving whilst being assisted. But with him finally collapsing on the floor and being on his own with Vecna in the distance, that shows that Vecna is going to take full control. I'm even wondering if in this instance it's happening within Will's mind as nobody else is around. Vecna's purpose for Will in reaching out to him from the Upside Down all over again could be for a number of reasons, but I think it could well be to find out specifically where the group are with his aim of causing the most amount of suffering towards them as possible, especially when it comes to killing Eleven. So the first theory about this final scene is that this could be Vecna potentially utilizing Will as a final sacrifice. We know how important Will is when it comes to bridging the connection between the Upside Down and the right side up, and with Vecna getting a hold of Will, he could well be looking to kill him with the hopes of bridging that connection for good. We know that Vecna's end goal is to essentially make the right side up the Upside Down, in the sense that there would be no humans left surviving and monsters would be able to walk upon Earth because he hated the way that he was treated by humans. So in killing Will, that could be a powerful start for him, especially if Will could be the biggest threat to him due to his abilities. Another theory is focused around Will actually having powers that we don't even truly know about yet, and Vecna potentially harnessing them to make himself even stronger. If this is something that Will does have, then Vecna would definitely know about it. There are many similarities between both Will and Vecna, such as when they were in their human form, they were both considered to be children that didn't quite fit in, and they both essentially summoned the Mind Flayer when they were within the Upside Down. They almost shared mirrored arcs in that sense. This shows that Will and Vecna are connected on a deeper level, which could be why Vecna is also interested in him again. If Will does have powers and Vecna is able to utilize them to make him even stronger, he'll look to do it so he can destroy Hawkins for good this time. One way in which Vecna might ultimately look to utilize Will's powers is by essentially using him as a host and fighting off against Eleven. Vecna could well understand the threat that he faces by being face to face with the likes of Eleven and the group as he suffered fatal injuries in the Season 4 finale, even having to flee when inside of his home in the Upside Down. So Vecna might have learned from his mistakes and could see Will as being the perfect host to fight the battle from afar. This would also pit the group against each other because it could mean that the easiest way to stop Vecna would be by killing Will, which would be a really sinister move, but that could also be why the group are set on finding Vecna in the Upside Down, because that way they won't need to hurt Will. Another theory could be that the scene that we're watching unfold could be from the beginning of the events. During the start of the trailer, Vecna said the line, "At long last, we can begin." This makes me think that Vecna's plan is only able to begin once he's got what he wants from Will. This could mean that all of the terror that Vecna caused in the trailer is just the start, so he can get his hands on Will and then utilize him in the way that he wanted him to. I wonder if, like in Season 1 of the show, Vecna plans on taking Will, knowing full well that the very thing that happened back then would happen all over again, and it would lead the group to head inside of the Upside Down in search for him. This time though, with the group looking for Will, it would actually be Vecna deliberately leading them down there so he could plan on wiping out his biggest threat, which would be 11. This is one of the less plausible theories out of the bunch though, because it would just kind of be a repeat from Season 1. One of the key moments in the trailer that makes me think that Vecna could well look to utilize Will as a host is right in the final frame. Will was being brought closer to Vecna slowly, and when he was right in front of him, Vecna moved his hand towards his head, almost showing that he wanted to trap his mind and take full control. As I said earlier, Will and Henry Creel shared a lot of similarities, and with Henry Creel seemingly being an individual that was naturally born with telekinesis abilities, maybe the reason that he selected Will is because Will is also one of those people, but Will just doesn't truly know it yet. So one of Vecna's endgames could be to take the form of Will, as he would have just been like what he was when he was Henry Creel before the Upside Down tore him apart and made him no longer resemble the human form anymore. So that's another theory too. This scene could also provide answers on why it was that Will was also taken in the first season of the show. Maybe because Vecna knew of Will's powers way back then and the similarities between them, and he wanted to mold him into somebody that was working for him, or he may have wanted to get him ready to essentially take him over. We also know that both Vecna and Will are deeply connected to the Mind Flayer, and with arguably the most powerful creature in the Upside Down not being seen for quite some time, could Vecna be using Will to summon it, as it was last seen when Will was trapped in there? Honestly, there are genuinely so many different meanings that could be interpreted by that final scene in the trailer between Vecna and Will, but I feel like the one that has the highest chance of occurring is Vecna potentially utilizing Will as a host and pitting him against the group, which will give them a difficult moral decision because they're not going to want to harm their friend. But also, it would finally show us that Will does have powers. The trailer has got me so excited for that first volume of the final season, and I can't wait to see not only what this scene means, but what exactly is going to happen in general. So, there you have it, what Vecna was doing to Will in the Stranger Things Season 5 trailer. If you want to see a full breakdown of the trailer, then check the video below. As well, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video and want to see more videos on Stranger Things. What do you think this scene means? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.